Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Wasteless World Talks. Today with Kevin and Bill again. And the topic today, memory. And I will dare to start with you, Bill, today. So if you close your eyes and you hear the term memory, what is the first what you see?
I wonder, is my memory getting better or is it getting worse? If I can't remember your name, is that because of age or is that because some other reason? So that's the first thing I think of, but it seems to open other doors. Kevin, help me out.
I was thinking, I've always, since I've been living in Denmark, had this when you read Danish words, they're like very old. A lot of these words are Viking words, and then they came to England and influenced the English language. And the Danish for memory is minda, which is mind with an E written on the end of it. So when I think of memory, I think of it as the mind. And I think, I may be wrong, but I think in Viking times, they were saying that memory was the mind. Or it became interpreted that way in English language, which is really interesting. The source of memories is the mind. Memory comes from the mind.
I'm just now considering how we have it in Czech language, because we use two terms. One is paměť, and the second can be mysl, but which will be close to mind. But we use more memory as memory as we understand it. So it's not this case.
So it makes me realize that I have some both good memories and bad memories. And I wonder, I wonder if they're good or bad simply because the perspective that I bring to that event or that memory. So a bad memory might be my getting terminated from my job, which has happened a couple of times. But maybe it's because I don't look at the memory and say, I should have left a long time ago. So this is a good thing. But I tend to look at it as a bad thing because it's a change. And the same way with good memories, some things I think of fondly, which I should be ashamed of. Where's this one taking us?
I'm actually envious of people who have very good memories. It's I have a problem remembering numbers. And so I can remember certain words and occasions, but anything to do with numbers and statistics, have the vaguest ability to recollect them.
On the other hand, have you noticed how the modern technology, computers, mobile phone, and everything are taking piece of our memory away? Because we have it before, we have just the standard phone line. There was no mobile phone, so not so many numbers. And we remember these 5, 6 numbers. Today, we do not. We drive according to our memory. Today, we drive according to the GPS. So I think that something or someone is trying to steal our memory, the ability to use our memory.
I think memory is it is something which needs to be exercised. If you don't exercise it, it won't improve. Whereas if you do, it will. I once saw a documentary about how magicians train their memory, and they can remember up to 50 or 60 different things, which are shown in front of them, which means they can memorize a deck of cards. And the technique was too much to even consider trying, but it's very impressive anyway.
I do remember I saw my granddad, he was allowing cross puzzles. And some of them, they are called Swedish. There are even no names, just numbers. And not Sudoku, he fills somehow the letters inside. I have never seen something like that. He didn't stop writing. I was not able to fill one word. And he just keep writing. That was unbelievable. And I think he was one of the men who I know who really was able to use a huge part of his memory, all this recovering, because he was reading a single day, a book, entire book in a single day. And he was able to really train it in this way, not the magician way, till the age of 99. So I think it's possible to train, but it's very well possible to lose it very fast. If you look at the people who use TikTok, just swiping, not thinking, just swiping.
I'm sure you can train yourself. I used to look at a long series of numbers and I would break them down into 3 at a time. And that way I could see them and type them or deal with them in some fashion. But I've been dealing with it for the last several years much more. And I can now look at 8 or 10 numbers and turn and retype them perfectly. So it is something. It is something that you train. I'm convinced.
And I'm sure, which is generally not logical, but that there is one way how to let's say reduce our ability to memorize things by giving us too much content. One after another, every second we get something new from all over and we stop to recognize, we stop to memorize. What I have learned that I have read somewhere that everything what we see, touch, and everything what in our life is stored somewhere in our brain.
I've heard that. Yeah.
The only issue is that we cannot reach it. We cannot intentionally open the door or the cupboard where it is stored. So we have it there, but only few people know how to open this and how to see the long line of numbers and retype them and so on. But not so many know it. And I think that with this amount of information, it's like the warehouse. So we fill it with everything to find nothing.
It's actually
that's a good example, like a warehouse.
It's quite interesting. I don't know if you know that as we get older, there comes a point where our short-term memory starts to decline and is replaced instead by our long-term memory. So quite often when old people, if you talk to your grandmother or your mother, she'll start talking about people that she hasn't talked about in 50 or 60 years. And that is because that part of her memory has been reopened. And so the old people remember more from earlier, or we all will remember more from our early years as we got old. So there's some kind of mechanic going on in the brain to release these memories.
There's something in the brain too, don't you think, Kevin, that searches out. So I will see somebody, for example, on the street, and I know them. Can't remember the name. And a few steps later, bing, the name comes to my lips. But there was something going on in there. Somebody was searching around. It's here someplace. It's here here it is, right? Searching around in that warehouse, right? So and sometimes it takes another second. Sometimes it will be. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll say, I remember his name.
And it's a fantastic feeling. I think the internet has taken that away from us because, when you talk to somebody and then, you can't remember the name of a certain singer. And then you think about it and you think about it and they're thinking about it. And then at some point the penny will drop and one of us will remember. And that was a wonderful feeling. But these days you just reach to the phone and you've got the answer within 5 seconds.
I remember a great discussion with my granddad once. We discussed about health topic and so on, and he said, "Yeah, I have the injury of my knee," and he told me what had happened, and I just saw that a few days ago, and at the end of his explanation, I have learned that he got it when he was 16. And it was like he is explaining, no, it was yesterday. So clear the image that was unbelievable, unbelievable. So, and I think that the search which was described by Bill, it's exactly that. And yes, Google take it out, or Google search engines or machines or AI, whoever, it doesn't matter. Take it away from us. Yeah, this, wow, I know it. This wake up in the middle of the night, which is a great feeling for us, not for the someone who is next to us, but for us, it's a great feeling.
It is. I think one interesting thing about memory is that our least powerful sense is our sense of smell. But smell is a huge trigger for memory. And I think that's really, really interesting, this connection between smelling something and remembering. That smell then instantly brings memories back.
I dated this girl in high school. So I won't tell you how many years ago, but it's more than half a century. And she had this particular perfume that she always used. And years later, I was thousands of miles away, and I walked by somebody on the street who had that, and immediately her whole face and figure and everything came back just in a split second. So that's crazy.
There is unfortunately one issue with the memory. If you say memory right now, especially a lot of young people get it not to mind, but get it to the computer and technology. Memory in the phone, memory in the computer, memory somewhere. And all the time when there is a filled memory, you can switch the device or you can back up. You cannot do this with brain. You know, my advantage is that I lost 15 years of my memory. So my memory is, so we can lose it somehow. Don't ask me why, how we can lose it, or it's compressed somewhere. I do not want to wake it up anymore, but it is there, but I cannot reach it. But at the same time, if you imagine how much information we collected during our lives, if we will be able to back it up somewhere and start from the zero with the fascination of a child, which in fact, maybe this switch which you describe, Bill, in being older and having better the long-term memory. Maybe this is this switch which realize this change, that we see more from the very early age, like restarting the memory again. Maybe.
Maybe we don't remember, maybe the short-term memory is not as active as it used to be, because what's happening right here, right now, is not as important. So we've been able to filter. So maybe I see things happening, or that 50 years ago, maybe I would remember that tomorrow, or remember that to be able to tell somebody else. But today, my filters are saying that's not important. There's other things that are more important. Be ready for the next thing to come around, or something like that. Age gives us filters, so we don't remember as much.
I think if you look at the news over the last few days, the United Nations would like to believe that we don't remember anything at all. I think the lies coming out of COP28 are just mind-numbing. It's like we're all idiots, that we don't remember anything, we haven't learned anything. It is absolutely appalling. And that's one thing I will remember, is these lies.
Right.
There
Right.
was
I will not forget that.
97,000 people invited. And I just realized when I watch it, because I do not watch it live or so, I do not follow it because it's wasting of time. But when I watch, when the people stay there and say, yes, we've been here and so much change, it's generally 97,000 people are being brainwashed, saying all what you know about us was wrong. Today we told you the truth. And tomorrow will be everything better. But at the same time, we already planned for COP33. It should be in India. So, which means we do not plan for the next 4 years any change. And even the fifth cannot be any change because otherwise no COP is needed. So COP is really this year. It's, I will say, much more worth than before because the people do not shame anymore. Before they shame for the fail. Today they sell it as a success.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I was reading that there's 2,500 lobbyists were invited by the oil and gas industry.
Just for the crude oil.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely shocking. And the fact that the head of COP26 is the president of the United Arab Emirates oil producing company. I mean, he has no conflict of interest at all, does he? He only has one interest, and that's producing oil and making money for the United Arab Emirates. They don't care about the climate. It is just the biggest disgrace. And I think the United Nations should be thoroughly embarrassed by this. It's beyond a joke.
1 year ago, I asked to be dissolved. You know it. There was a reason.
Kevin, do you know how the head of the next COP is selected? I don't know that. How did somebody make a mistake like that? Or is it a group of people, or is it how is that person selected?
I have no idea. All I can say is that and I may be wrong, but if you look at things, the look is that COP28 has been taken over by the oil giants. It is not to improve the environment, but it's to improve their business.
Generally, I think that you do not select in the COP events, you do not select the head, you select the country and the city. This is how generally the Egypt last year was selected and UK before, and then the president came after generally. So the presidency is somehow head over from one person to another. One person can, for example, had two of those, which happened a few years ago. But I don't think we speak about specific person at the time when new countries are being nominated. Even Czech Republic, I think that Czech Republic last year asked for being nominated for 2030 or something like that. For me, horrible imagination, you know. It's. But when I see UIA, everything, you will say everything will be better. But I imagine that it will be in China next year, and we will talk about the freedom of expression and everything. So
I read a great comment by an environmental group. I can't remember which one, but their president said it's like inviting arms dealers to a peace conference. That's how low COP28 has sunk.
And generally, I can imagine that this will happen and it will work because they will not sell guns to kill. They will sell guns to protect yourself.
So why don't people have a memory of being treated or being lied to like this? This is not the first time that the marketing people have spun the truth, and that people buy it. They accept it. What is wrong with memory that you don't remember?
I think generally the memory which you just described is somehow connected with a good feeling. It will be good change. The promise is, yes, I have to trust them. They are politicians. You know, somehow this, I cannot explain it correctly, but somehow with this, I think, is the lack of memory connected. If it will be good, yes. If there is something wrong, let's block it. It's not so. We need to look to better future, even if it's not true. Pretenders, I call them pretenders.
By the way, Michael, it's really interesting because it is almost a survival technique, because there is so many things to be bitter and angry about that it's actually healthier not to remember them, but just to get rid of them. Which again encourages the giants to behave the way they do.
Before we start, I have written another about COP article. So this week there is a lot of articles from me, but I will start a new one. And I remember when I saw someone who was promoting how great it was and so on, the term Stockholm Syndrome came to my mind. And I do not know if I understand it correctly, but this is, let's say, the good. How will you explain this term?
It's been a while since I've discussed that, but isn't the Stockholm Syndrome where the prisoner loves the guard, the
I think
person?
So. Yeah. Is it so, Kevin?
Yeah, I think it is. This, I think the term comes from some kind of terrorist action where some people were held hostage in Stockholm, and over the time that they were captured, they became supportive of those who had captured them.
And it's exactly what's happening right now at COP. 97,000 people will return home, and they will speak good about the event. They will speak good about the people who've been there. When I saw Antonio Guterres in the middle of these children there, of this youth, they call it youth COP, whatever, it was like a nightmare for me. Like a nightmare.
But I'm sure that these people all got some nice gifts to take back home with them.
Tickets are paid, accommodation are paid, they have enough to eat, to drink, they will come back with some presents. Of course, what they can say wrong about it. And
it feeds their ego and their reputation.
Yeah. And I think that this generally, I call it the human show. In a war there has been used human as a protection wall between the soldiers. Human shelter? No, human shield. I think that generally Greta Thunberg started a new human shield age in some way, because she was invited despite the fact that she will speak wrongly about the people, and everybody make selfies and share it and so on, because there was a Greta. And right now there will be 97,000 Gretas doing exactly the same. So I think that the giants are establishing, because I feel there in this action, I feel the fear of the giants. I think that they really fear the future, and they do everything to cover the possibility that the future can be different than the current situation. And they will use this change people to as the shield. You know, if there is 97,000 people, very few will take care what 2 or 3 will do together. The meetings there, the hidden actions, and so on, so easy to do there.
And I suppose these 97,000 all flew to the United Arab Emirates.
So
it's just a joke, it really is.
I just saw a carbon capture, whatever, a calculation, but there has been no details of this, of only this one event, you know, with 97,000 people traveling all around the globe. It has bigger carbon footprint than 5 or 10 countries generally in 2 weeks.
But you have to wonder, why isn't there an alternative COP? Why hasn't somebody organized a real deal to counter this rubbish and to say this is how it really is?
Good question.
On the other hand, you know the answer. 3 of us, we do not have enough money to call this into action, but I am trying to do it, to be honest, because this is why the Industry 5.0 Alliance exists. This is why there must be alternative to UN, to World Economic, and the people say, it may be this, okay. But you know what is the biggest difficulties? It's not a 10,000 euro amount for the company to join. It is the fact that everybody has to follow the same rules. And they are very simple. Trust, honesty, transparency, and few more. And this is the biggest obstacle for the companies to join, because they are speaking about it, but they are not doing it. And to join COP or to become a next organizer, you just have to have enough amount of money, enough money to pay for that. That's all.
You know, some time ago, in one of the discussions, we were talking about critical thinking, critical reasoning, and how some countries actually are better at it than other countries. And if memory serves me correctly, Denmark was one of the leading countries in the ability to teach their school children critical reasoning. And I think this is a part of memory, right? What we choose to remember, how we interpret what we see, and then that becomes a memory. And so the people who attend the COP conferences, the people who buy into the I was going to call it misinformation, but they are lies, are not employing the critical reasoning. And so if we were to promote critical reasoning more, I don't know. There's just so much misinformation. I don't know if it's even possible to teach people how to. So for misinformation, I have some rules. If I'm reading something, and some of those rules are, number one, do I know who is saying this, or where this has been published? Because that's a tip-off, could be a tip-off. Is the writer calling the other person names? Are they down in the gutter? That's generally a tip-off. And what does my spider sense? There's a cartoon character called Spider-Man. Do you know him? And he has a spider sense that tingles when danger is near. So what does my spider sense tell me about what it is that I'm reading now? And listen to my spider sense. So there are ways to do it. We are fighting a huge, very powerful bad person. This whole misinformation and the religion of the giants. But we've seen this before. As a marketing person, there are three great big optics, three great big marketing campaigns that went on for decades that accomplished what they wanted to, that sold more of that product. The first one was sugar. So in America, when we make a pie or a cake, we put in a lot more sugar than people in Europe or people in other parts of the country. And that's because in the 1950s, the sugar industry hired Madison Avenue and the marketing people, and they put on this long program in the media to convince people that sugar is good. The more sugar, the better. And just a decade or two after that, in the 70s and 60s, the same Madison Avenue marketing people were hired by the tobacco companies to do the same thing. I can still remember a commercial, a cigarette commercial on TV, where a guy in a lab coat and a stethoscope came out and sat on the corner of the table, lit up a cigarette, and said, "It's good for digestion." And that went on for decades. And now the same marketing people from the same companies have been hired by the oil companies or the I don't know if
AI,
it's just petroleum.
AI, for example.
AI, yeah.
No. I mean to promote AI and technology the same way.
So how do we as consumers who are getting this very slick marketing message, and now we call, it's the same thing with cop. Very slick marketing messages until that idiot from the Middle East got up and said, no, this is good. Who was that? Some sheik.
It was the president. It was the president of the COP.
Al Jaber.
Yeah.
Yep. So how are we as consumers supposed to accept some things and not accept other things? And how do we get that sense? How do we hone that sense and make it sharper so that we can listen or see misinformation and say, nope. And that should be a part of everybody's training, just like reading and writing and geography and so on. We need to teach our kids how to tell what is right. We need to teach our adults, for crying out loud.
I think that, sorry to interrupt you, I think that one of the very important part is to say, I am not customer.
I'm not buying that.
I am human. I am human. I'm not customer. I am not ID number. I am who I am. And this is what the people do not do. They say, I am Democrat. I am whatever. I am whatever.
Right.
I am right, left. No, they forgot completely about the topic, who they are. And I think this is what needs to be wakened up. Or what do you think, Kevin?
I think it was an interesting, going back to tobacco. I saw recently there was a list of the world's greatest mass murderers. And there was the usual suspects. There was Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, and Joseph Stalin. But the guy at number one was way ahead of everybody else. And I'd never heard of him. I didn't know who this guy was. Then when I started to research him, he was the guy who invented the cigarette machine. He invented the machine that could make a cigarette. And the interesting thing is, it's a matter of perspective, because it's easy enough to say that Yes, Joseph Stalin killed 20 million Russians in the Great Purges, or however many he was meant to have killed. But when you say, okay, we're talking about mass murderers, let's hold the responsible people responsible for deaths. If you take that new perspective, then of course the inventor of the cigarette machine is the world's greatest mass murderer. And I think we need to do the same with the oil companies. We need to look at them in a different way and say, they're not producing oil, they're not producing gas, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. But what they are doing is destroying this, destroying that, killing this, killing that. And I think that for the younger generation, it's easier for them to appreciate this. And it's them that will need the metrics going forward. And so we need to find new ways to define what these companies are really doing.
Because the companies are finding ways to mask this. The oil companies keep explaining how green they are, and why they're investing. Now they're investing in wind and so on. So they are camouflaging their whole message. What we need to do is to say, no, wait a minute, you're not doing. That's just optics. What you're really doing is killing people.
Yeah. So a few years ago, somebody had redefined Nestle not as a confectionery company or a soft drinks company, but as the world's biggest producer of plastic bottles, which is really, really interesting. It's not, I'm sure, Nestle's first choice of description, but somebody needs to do that with these oil companies, describe what they are doing.
This is what I call all the time that it's necessary to, if you meet someone, to project what is his or her core business. Because this is exactly, the politics is not looking for a solution. He's looking to do politics. And this has nothing to do, if there will be no solution, there will be politics. If there will be solution, the politics will not be needed. So simple it is. It is really very simple, like the E equal mc squared in economy. Very simple message. And it lands with the people. So I don't think there is needed such a big event as COP to be counter. We have two more minutes to the end. We need just to spread the message. The issue is that the media which can help us to spread it, including Google and Facebook and so on, they are part of the game. So they will not support this spreading. I completely stopped, for example, reading Twitter. I am just now time to time posting something, but I stop reading. Because after when Elon take it over, it completely lost anything what I like it for. So there is just remain a platform where you can play something and somebody maybe will read it. So, but I think it was very interesting discussion again. We have 1 minute left. And I'm sure it will continue not only in our heads, but I hope that in the heads of the listeners as well. And I would like to ask everyone, so before you say yes to some idea from someone being presented to you as the best one, ask yourself what is his or her core business. Because it can help you to understand why you have been asked this question. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, free, and be human as we are. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Bill, for your time. See you next time. Bye-bye.